What's going on, guys? My name is LeBron James, and welcome back to my TED Talk. Today I'm going to be telling you about a story. Yes, a story of adventure, action, and even a hint of romance. Nah, it's nothing like that. Today I'll be telling you the story of the Spanish teacher from hell. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and we really just got reminded of her while we were reminiscing, and I thought it would make for a hilarious story time. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. This story takes us back to the dark times of the COVID pandemic, specifically after everyone was finally able to go back to school. And we had to wear masks and all that crap, which honestly sucked. It was not my favorite. And especially when they had us walk in the hallways with like the tape, where you had to like walk in between it. It was like you were driving. It was so dumb. I didn't really think it worked anyways because everyone was still getting sick, but I digress. Now, around this time, many teachers were actually quitting. I'm sure it was due to the money constraints, but, I'm not 100% sure. One of those teachers was my Spanish teacher, Miss Gonzalez, who was awesome. And really, everyone liked her, so we were all really sad to see her leave. So, after Miss Gonzalez left, that's when Professor Garcia showed up. Now, when I say professor, I am not joking. She actually had a doctorate in Spanish education, and she transferred from some Ivy League school. Now, if that wasn't kind of a hint that she was going to be a bit strict, oh boy, her true colors were going to show soon enough. Her first week there, she actually wasn't all that bad. Sure, she wasn't what we were all used to, but she wasn't yelling or sending any of us to the office or anything. Yet. The first time we got to see who she really was, she started shutting the door on kids before they could get into class, so she could write them up as late. Now, that's a pretty good defense mechanism for the kids who are actually skipping class, but these kids would literally be sitting right in front of the door, barely walking into the class, and she would try to, shove them out and call them late. She would run from her desk. I'm telling you, run from her desk to shut the door. And we were all super confused. And these kids would be walking right up as the bell would ring, and she would close it a little early. So we were all like, what? If that honestly didn't clue me in enough on how the rest of the school year was going to look, boy, howdy was I wrong. After the switch in teachers, the professor decided to give us assigned seats. And she sat me next to someone I'm going to call for the rest of this video, Sos Amigos Kid. Now, the reason he has that name was because he would look over at me every day, blank face, and say it like clockwork. And overall, just do it for the love of the game. And when the teacher would look over, she would get mad and say to stop talking. But not to him, to me. I got multiple conversations from the teacher just telling me to stop talking during class. But I never spoke. I would answer questions and stuff, but this kid would literally just stare at me and say stuff to the side of my face, and I would get in trouble. Even to this day, I still get mad over it. And that's where our story really begins. You see, due to Sos Amigos Kid bothering me 24/7 in that class, I really wanted to move seats. And I begged, and I mean begged, to get moved. But the teacher would not have it. She really thought I was trying to move closer to one of my buddies, but I wouldn't have cared where I got moved. I just didn't want to be near him. And it infuriated me so much that she kept telling me no, and it pissed her off too that I kept begging. Until finally one day, it all came to a head. One day, I came in a not so great mood, and things were playing out as usual. Sos Amigos Kid hit his one line of dialogue, and I ignored him, and the teacher happened to just be giving a lecture, and she looked at me. She looked at me and said if I keep talking, I was getting written up. Now, usually I would have just ignored her, stopped talking, or tried to ignore him or tell him to shut up. But that day, well, it just wasn't in the cards. So I talked back, telling her it wasn't me and that I was tired of being blamed. And well, she didn't like that at all. So we argued, and I said something I really shouldn't have said. And to this day, I don't know if I regret it, but honestly, it probably wasn't the smartest thing to help my case. You see, someone previously had mentioned to me that her last name kind of sounded like garlic. Now, I'm not proud of this. This was very middle school level, taunting. But in the moment of anger, I may have called her Miss Garlic. And if you thought that made things worse, it absolutely did. And the room just went silent. You could hear some snickering, mainly from my buddy. But honestly, everything went silent. And since that day, everything got worse. And every single day from that point on, I was getting in trouble for really dumb stuff. Whether Sos Amigos Kid was trying to talk to me again, and I would ignore him, get in trouble for talking. I wasn't looking directly at the screen. I wasn't paying attention. You name it, I was getting in trouble for it. And I was getting a lecture almost every day after class. And word had kind of spread to some of the other teachers that she didn't like me. And the teachers knew me as a pretty good kid. I'm no saint, but I got my work done and I didn't bother any of the classes. So they knew I wasn't starting any issues. Now, I could handle a crappy teacher at school. That isn't an issue. But when it starts affecting my home life, that's when it gets, no bueno. So one day I'm literally just sitting in my bed and I'm nothing's going on in my life. I'm just sitting there on my phone chilling, and all of a sudden I hear the SWAT team bust in my door.
And it's no SWAT team, it's my mother. And I was like, what? She comes in, she rips out my PlayStation, takes my computer, and runs out. I was like, I thought I was being punked. And then my dad comes trotting up to the door, does the whole lean against it with his arm crossed, and he's like, you know what you did? I was like, no? What happened? Here's what happened. Earlier that morning, when I was actually in her class, we were doing some like test studying. It was like a Kahoot, if you guys have ever done that. And I'd gotten all the answers right, and I was doing all the answers from the computer. But I had my head down. I wasn't sleeping, but I was still doing the work. And she did not seem to like that. So, in her own free time, she calls my mother. She told her I was sleeping through an important test and it could affect my grade. And then it all came out to my mother about how such a rude child I am and how I make her class such a living hell. Now, if any one of you guys have ever had to explain to a very angry mother that you were actually the one in the right and she was in the wrong, it doesn't go well at all. So when I had to explain to my mom that the teacher who just called her is lying about the fact that I was sleeping through a test, it wasn't exactly easy. And, I didn't, lie. I told her the truth. I had been a bit of a butthead towards the beginning of when she had started, and I did call her Miss Garlic. But besides that, I was a pretty good kid. Not in her eyes, though. So my mom actually believed me towards the end of it, and she kind of, thought about the story, and she's like, some of it doesn't make sense. So she believed me. And at the end of the day, she actually emailed the assistant principal. Now, I didn't know about this until a couple days later, but she had emailed the assistant principal trying to figure out what was going on with the situation. And that was probably the best thing that happened to me during this entire thing. Now, unbeknownst to me, the assistant principal was actually looking into the whole situation, and she hadn't talked to me yet, so I didn't know any of this was going on. Well, a couple days later, she caught me with my phone. Now, I had my phone out. It was in my pocket, and I literally just pulled it up right under the desk to see what was going on, because I had gotten a bunch of messages, and I usually don't get notifications, so I thought it was something important, family related. But I literally had it out for 2 zeptoseconds. She caught me with it out and wrote me up, and I got sent to the office because our school had a no phones policy. So I was screwed. So I end up in the office, and the assistant principal comes out. Now, usually we would go to the dean, so I was kind of pooping my pants that the assistant principal is the one who comes out and wants to talk to me. And that's when she lets it spill that her and my mom had been talking, and she had been looking into the situation. Now, in her class, I actually had an A. I was doing the work, and I'm glad she didn't actually try failing me or anything, at least at this point in time, but she knew there was something wrong. So we had a talk, and I told her everything that was going on. And she actually later on interviewed some of my other teachers to see, how accurate this was. And they all told her I was a good kid. So this, was kind of out of the ordinary for one teacher, for me to be pissing off one teacher. So at the end of the day, she actually removed me from the class. She put me in another Spanish teacher's class, and I ended up getting straight A there. Now, after moving to this new Spanish teacher class, every time I walked by Miss Garcia's class, oh my gosh, she gave me the nastiest look I have ever seen someone give. And she would watch me walk across the hall and give me this just evil look. And I know deep down she thought she did something right. But in reality, moving me to a different class was helping me more than it was helping her. So, funny enough, after I left, she ended up picking on one of my buddies, the guy that was in the class that she thought I was trying to move next to anyways. She started doing the same thing she did to me to him. And he actually eventually got moved into the same class I was in, and it worked out so much better. We got to share class together, we got to sit next to each other, and it was great. And the rest of my year actually went off without a hitch. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the story of the Spanish teacher from hell. I just want to say, if you guys like this style video, let me know, and I can do more like this. I have a lot of funny stories about my life, and I'm cool with sharing them here. I do want to forewarn you, all the names in this video have been changed. None of them are the original names. I had to change a little bit of the jokes just because of that, but the premise of the story is still the same. So that way, nobody gets upset, and nobody gets outed by anything. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!